Hello and welcome to Haunted Montreal Spooky Story Sessions. I'm your host, Holly Rhiannon, and today I'm going to tell you all about Montreal's invisible pets. Here at Haunted Montreal, we bring you ghost stories in both French and English every Saturday. Before we get into today's story, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button so you get notified every time we have a new tale to tell. And hey, if you're already subscribed, thank you so much. Welcome back. We're very happy to have you. Now, without further ado, let's get spooky. Montreal is reputed to be an extremely haunted city. The most haunted in Canada, if not all of North America. There are well over 100 stories of people who have died, often tragically, and returned to haunt the city as ghosts. However, a little known fact is that Montreal is rumored to be the home of at least two invisible pets, a cat and a dog. In the early 1970s, the Gray family experienced an invisible cat in their home. What was remarkable is that the feline could be heard and felt, but it was never seen. In another instance, a young boy in the Montreal suburb of Roxborough took on what his parents assumed to be an imaginary friend named Duke. It would seem that invisible pets are part of the ghostly folklore of the city of Montreal. The only unanswered question is why? According to paranormal storyteller Darren Zenko, author of Ghost Stories of Pets and Animals, animals can definitely return as ghosts. He explains that some ghost animals, especially pets, prove their loyalty in the afterlife, while others, such as Great Britain's black dogs, return to terrify the living. In Montreal, the ghostly pets are decidedly milder. The first story comes from Sheila Hervey's 1973 classic book titled Some Canadian Ghosts, in a chapter called The Invisible Cat, pages 82 to 85. She relays a strange story that happened to the Gray family, including parents Brian and Louise and their 4 children who experienced an invisible cat in their Montreal home. The story does not identify where in Montreal the Gray family lived, merely explaining that the Canadian family had a most peculiar problem. The author elaborated that even though the family did not own a cat, there was definitely such an animal living in the house with them, albeit one that they couldn't see. Sheila Harvey explained that the first time the feline spirit visited was one late afternoon in the master bedroom. The bedroom was located on the second floor of the 2-story residence, and the mother, Louise Gray, had experienced a very tiring day. Mrs. Gray was stretched out on her bed. She was quietly resting before preparing dinner. Suddenly, she felt a plop, the type that cats make when they jump on the bed. The door to the master bedroom was closed, so there was no way for an ordinary cat to access the room. Mrs. Gray, laying on her side, first thought that maybe her children were playing tricks on her. She thought that perhaps they had slipped a stray cat into the room during a moment when she had dozed off. The author elaborated that the cat walked slowly across the bed towards the window. Still, Louise Gray could not bring herself to roll over and watch its progress. She has no explanation for this lack of motion other than that she seemed to think that something was wrong. Then, Mrs. Gray felt the bed move slightly in recoil as the cat leaped across to the windowsill. She flipped over and simply stared in amazement. There was no cat in the casement window, nor could it have left through the window. While the window itself was open, the screen was still firmly in place. Besides, even a cat might hesitate before jumping from a second-story window onto a concrete patio below. Following this first encounter, the mysterious invisible cat started coming back frequently. Sheila Harvey believes that spirit cats are not different from ordinary cats. They find a place where they can maintain a high degree of independence and then settle right in to make themselves at home. One of the Gray children, Tom, who was a third-year university student, had been away at college when the invisible cat moved into the house. His mother sent him a letter explaining the situation, and he responded with skepticism. When he returned home for a visit, his excited younger brother and sisters confirmed the outlandish story. Tom didn't believe a word of it, being doubtful of all things paranormal. He was determined to disprove his family's theory that an invisible cat was roaming the house. Sheila Harvey explained that early one summer morning, the disbelieving young student got a first-hand opportunity to test his theory. He experienced a visit from the elusive cat. Tom, in fact, felt the animal land right on the small of his back while he lay in bed. The weight seemed about right for a cat. Tom played possum, tensing himself to spring suddenly in order to catch the animal. Moments passed. The cat walked right up to the head of the bed, brushing lightly against the boy's hair. It crossed over the pillow and settled down beside Tom's left ear. He could even hear the sound of gentle purring. But when the youth raised his head and looked at where the cat should have been, there was nothing to be seen. He could still hear the soft purring next to his pillow. And the pillow itself was flattened as though something were lying on it. Following the strange encounter, Tom acquiesced that there was, in fact, an invisible cat living in the Gray household. The feline went on to become an accepted member of the Gray family, who were especially pleased that the cat caused little trouble and cost nothing to feed. Indeed, they even missed their invisible pet on occasions when it did not turn up for several days. When the author asked the owner of this unusual cat if she believed in ghosts, she expected an affirmative response. However, a pensive Mrs. Gray replied, "No, not really. I believe that sometimes when you're thinking about someone you were once very fond of, then there's a sort of feeling of closeness that's almost a spiritual experience in itself. But my only personal contact with that kind of thing has been in connection with that cat of ours. We've never been able to figure out how to explain it properly. Funny things just happen, I guess." There is no explanation as to why an invisible cat decided to move into the Gray's family home, or why it might have become a ghost in the first place. Furthermore, given that the story was written in 1973, the odds are that the Gray family no longer lives at the same address. Could the same invisible cat be haunting another family today? The second story, about an invisible dog, offers more theories about why a dog might become a ghost. The tale was published in Joel A. Sutherland's Haunted Canada No. 6 in a chapter called An Imaginary Friend, pages 29 to 32. Sutherland scoured the country for creepy and chilling tales, and he discovered one in the Montreal borough of Pierrefonds-Roxborough. A newlywed couple named Kyle and Pete had moved into their first home on Georges Vanier Street in Roxborough, a suburb on Montreal's South Shore. Their home, an end unit of a row house, was small and ugly, but they were nevertheless excited to start life together. They figured it was only a matter of time before they would be able to upgrade and move into a nicer home. For some reason, Pete's wife thought there was something not quite right about the house, but she couldn't put her finger on it. Visiting friends often picked up bad vibes from their home, and Kyle's best friend told her that she was positive there was some sort of presence in the house. Despite these uneasy feelings, Kyle and Pete soon welcomed their first child into the world, a boy who they decided to name Gareth. A gregarious boy, Gareth laughed a lot and soon learned how to crawl. It wasn't long before he was walking and talking. Everything seemed to be progressing normally until Gareth, at about 18 months old, began talking about a friend who he called Duke. It began one day when Kyle spotted him sitting on the step at the bottom of the staircase, looking up. He was talking to someone or something. She glanced at the top of the stairs, but there was nobody there. When she asked who he was talking to, he replied, "My friend Duke." Gareth would continue speaking to Duke, and both Kyle and Pete thought it was cute at first, assuming that he had created an imaginary friend for himself. If one of the parents went to sit on the couch, Gareth would sometimes get upset and start waving his arms frantically, yelling at them not to sit on Duke. The boy began to spend more and more time with Duke as the days passed. He would often say, "Come here, Duke," and proceed to lead his imaginary friend to different places in the house. Kyle began to wonder where Gareth had come up with this name. She didn't recall him coming across the name Duke in any movies or on TV programs that they'd watched together, nor did they know anybody of that name. One day, Kyle was visiting a neighbor on Georges Vanier, and what she learned sent shivers up her spine. When Kyle mentioned Gareth's imaginary friend, the neighbor's eyes grew wide in disbelief. The neighbor, now quite pale, was silent at first. After a few moments, she finally spoke with a slight quiver in her voice. "Before you moved in, an old lady used to live in your home. There was a fire. The old lady and her dog died in the blaze. The dog's name, Kyle? It was Duke." Suddenly, everything clicked in Kyle's mind, albeit in a very disturbing way. The way Gareth interacted with Duke was the same way a person interacted with a dog, not another human. Gareth would continue playing with and talking to the ghostly dog, which only he could see apparently, until the family was finally able to move to a better home. By now, Gareth was 3 years old. At the new house, Gareth stopped playing with or talking to the invisible dog, leading Kyle to believe that the ghost remained in the old home on Georges Vanier Street. Today, Gareth is grown up and has no recollection of his imaginary friend. His mother, however, remembers those strange times vividly, as though they were yesterday. Montreal is extremely haunted, so perhaps it should come as no surprise that even pets can turn into ghosts in this city. Why the ghostly cat returned is unknown, whereas the phantom dog seems to have remained on the site where he perished in a blaze. Whether or not there are other invisible animals surprising Montreal's citizens is unknown at this time. If you have a story about the ghost of a pet or other animal on the Montreal island, please contact us. As always, we want to hear your theories about what could be going on. Thank you so much for stopping by. If this is your first video, we do hope you'll stick around for the next one. We put out new stories every Saturday in both French and English. If you'd like to learn more about the organization founded by the talented Donovan King, it's all listed in the description down below, along with links to purchase tickets to in-person haunted storytelling tours. Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We'll have a new video out for you next Saturday, but until then, stay spooky.